In this video tutorial, we're going to take a few minutes to tour the interface of Adobe Premiere Pro Creative Cloud, just so we go through the different windows that you see on display, how the workspace is set up, and how it can be changed a little bit for different kinds of editing tasks. So let's bring up Premiere, and we'll open up a project real quickly. And let me just go through what we're going to see on the screen. In this layout, this is a typical one that I use and a lot of editors use that kind of mimics the way Premiere and a lot of editing programs used to look. And this is the old Premiere layout that I use. It's based off of some previous versions. But let me just show you what's in here, and then I'll tell you how you can switch to different workspaces. So right off the bat, I'll start like we're going around a clock, going clockwise. Upper left, we have the project window, sort of like the home page or like a master database for everything that goes into our project. We have bins, those little folders, we call them bins, so does Premiere. Open it up, you've got B-roll, we have graphics in another bin, sequences. Let's move to the right, and this is the source window. Notice as I move from one to the other, you see this blue highlight around it. That means it's the active window. It's the one Premiere is focusing on most. It's the one you're working in at the moment. Over to the right, in between the source and the program window, we have this little audio meter. I like to put it right there in between so it draws my eyes right to the middle, so I always see audio levels of any source clip or any program sequence that we're looking at. Which brings us to the program window. Program refers to what is in the timeline. So if I have a sequence that's active here, I will see the video playing back in this. Think of that as like a video monitor for the program feed. Now down below, of course, is the timeline. So anything that I string together into a sequence of clips, we'll see it right here. Finally, all the way around is sort of a catch-all window that I use for the media browser. Also, I keep my effects tab there, which is like a little window for, just a menu of all the different effects I can use. It's also got a little information tab, markers if I make any notes or comments or marks through the clips. Also a little history tab, which we'll talk about in some of the other tutorials when we find uses for that connected here. Okay, so back around. Oh, one thing I left off. Do you notice that we skipped? It's this little narrow column in between the browser and the timeline. This is a little toolbar. So I have a bunch of little tool sets with little clever little icons for the razor tool and the slip and the slide, the ripple and the roll. And we'll be talking about those in some later videos. But back over here to the layouts. I mentioned that this is sort of a layout that you'll mostly see by default in our labs. It's based on the old Premiere Pro version, CS5. So the way you can change these layouts or workspaces is by going up to the Window tab. When you're in the Premiere Pro workspace, you're in the toolbar up here, mouse along. If you need to know how the windows are laid out, just go right to Window, drop down, and you see the workspaces. And these are ones built in for special workspace for doing audio, where it opens up some of the audio tools. There's a workspace for color correction, which is very nice. And the other workspaces are set for a conventional editing. The one called Editing, Plain Old Editing, brings you the new version of Adobe's layout, which I don't prefer as much. So I always switch back to that CS5.5, or I made a few tweaks to it, and I call mine Video Edit. So there's always ways to customize stuff. And this is my particular layout. Again, it has the windows set where I want them to be, where I know my eyes are going to be looking while I'm doing my editing. So it's easy to switch back and forth to the different layouts. If you see that you get into the edit day and you're hectic and time's running out on a project and something's missing, like you don't see the project window, it could be that it just didn't get put on display. It got closed. The panel was closed and you're like, hey, wait a minute, my project disappeared. I don't have anything. Well, just find the window command up here on the toolbar, drop down and say, oh, you know what? There's no check mark by project. Let's check it. And the project window comes right back. We might have to resize a few things, but it's there and we can bring it back. So here's my project window back safe and sound. Back over here, I want to show you a couple of things in the bins. We mentioned that we've got a B-roll bin. I opened it by itself just by double clicking. I can drop the reveal arrow and then page up and down, but why not click it twice? It opens in its own tab right beside the project tab, and then that's a nice way to get that open. I also want SOTS open too, so I can bounce back and forth from project to B-roll to SOTS. I can look at these by what we call list view, where I just see the title and all the metadata. Or, got a very handy button here, I can switch to icon view. And you notice as I mouse over that, icon view has a keyboard command. So I can hit the command plus page down keys, and it will easily take me into icon view, which is what we're about to see. So whenever you mouse over something in Premiere, if it has a keyboard command or shortcut, it will tell you right in the parentheses. Isn't that cool? So I can switch back and forth by clicking, but that to me takes time to reach over to the mouse, grab it, move it, click it. I'd rather just hit the keys real fast. You know, command page up, command page down. I can just toggle fast on the keyboard between the list view and the icon view. Zoom back out. This is a great way to look at a clip. I can grab one and play it. I can actually preview, and I can even edit from here to the timeline if I want. But maybe I want to take the clip and put it in the source window. I can drag it over, or I can just double click it. Double click, puts it in the source window. I can also hit a keyboard shortcut, Shift plus O for open in source. So if I want to open it in the source window, let's pick this one, Shift O. Now that one's open. It's called S gives pendant. So easy for me to open it, preview it here, or look at it here. The other thing I can do with my bin, or really any of these windows, whichever part of the window I have open, whichever tab, is hit that tilde key we talked about in a previous video. It's the little squiggly or the accent grave. Look under the escape key on your keyboard, tap that, and any window that you have highlighted, any tabbed area that's in blue, will open now full screen. So I can also go through my clips and watch them. I can even do this. Let's go way down here at the bottom. Draw your eyes to this space. I'll zoom in on it. You see this little scale bar? I can make those icons big if I like. Smaller, larger. Let's go back. Now, that's a good way to sort of go through my raw footage, see what I've got. How does it look? How does it capture the action? How is it going to match up with some of the other shots as I build a sequence? So that's really nice. I'll hit the tilde key and it'll shrink back down. Notice my icons stayed really nice and big. I can also redraw those, make them a little bit smaller, larger or smaller. Keep in mind that when you display these thumbnails or these icons, you are asking your processor on your computer and the graphics card to do a lot more work. It has to show you all this video. So it chugs along. It may wear down the processor. It may make the program run a little bit slower if you have an older computer. So something else we'll notice as we go through, notice for each clip, you see a little number. That gives me the duration, 12 seconds, 21 frames. Let's put that one in the source window. Here it is, 12 seconds, 21 frames. That's my duration between what we would have an in and out mark. No marks in the timeline yet. It's just pristine. The clip has not been bothered. So we have over 12 seconds to work with. Notice here in blue, anytime you see a blue number, that's the playhead position. That looks like home plate. Think of that as a home plate, or it's like an arrow pointing down at the time commands. That's going to be your playhead. So wherever we put the playhead, we're now at 4 seconds, 10 frames into the clip. Let's open up a sequence since we haven't seen the timeline yet. I'll open up my sequence bin and let's pull up the SeaWorld sequence. And a couple of things to note here. In the timeline, we also have a playhead position. So wherever we put that playhead, by dragging it or playing it with the keyboard, stop right there. 4 seconds and 14 frames into the story. Look over here to the program window. We see the video that matches that frame in the timeline, and it's at 4 seconds, 14 frames. The sequence itself is 1 minute and 16 seconds, 29 frames, so really 117 is what we'd round that off to if we were doing a total running time. So I can drag through or play with the keys. Spacebar just plays back and stops it, plays it, stops it. And we'll look at other keyboards in some of the upcoming tutorials. Another section to look at is the track panel right here. If I launch a source clip, let's go back and get one of those. Notice that when I double-clicked the source clip, the V1 and A1 highlighted here. That means that that source clip has both video, a video track, and an audio track. On the other side, I see also this V1, A1, A2. These are my timeline tracks. So these numbers on the right refer to the tracks in the timeline. The other thing to note about the timeline is that I can zoom in and zoom out if I need to get a closer look. Let's say I'm editing way down here at this part of the scene, right between these two shots, and I really need to get in there and do some detailed work, or I've got to finesse my audio tracks. If I just hit the plus, it's either the plus or the equal sign key, I can zoom in right to that edit point. If I hit the minus key, I'll zoom back out. Look how tiny I can make that. If it gets too tiny and I'm like, oh no, it shrunk down. Now if it looks like too tiny, oh, I got it all shrunk down too much, how do I make it look normal? If I hit the / key, it'll bring it right back out to sort of a full screen display, so everything will fit in the timeline window. So keep in mind that. That's really nice to zoom in, plus key, minus key, zoom out. You don't have to use any other modifiers, just plus and minus, in and out. A really nice way to change that. You can also adjust the height of the tracks. I can hit Shift minus, and everything will get really flat, like flattening a pancake. If I hit Command plus, only the video tracks will get bigger. Command minus will shrink them. So I'm basically commanding. This is like a normal language model here. I tell myself a story so I can remember these keyboard shortcuts. It's too much to memorize all of them. So if I do a Command plus, I am commanding the tracks, the video tracks, to get larger. If I want them smaller, I Command minus. I command them to shrink, to get smaller. If I want to deal with the audio tracks, I will hit Option. So I want the option to now change the audio tracks. And I want the option for them to get bigger by hitting Option plus. I also want the option to make them smaller, Option minus. So I can change the way things look in the timeline with just these really handy keyboard moves. One of the last things we want to cover on this little tour around the interface, and we'll do this by going back up to the project area where we have our bins. And if you'll notice, there's a little search window. Calls it a filter, but it's like a little Google search bar, if you like. So if you're looking for a particular clip or some sound effect or something that you stored in a bin and you can't remember what bin you put it in, well, just search for it. I'm going to type in a clip that has spray, the word spray in it. Because there's a couple of scenes in this story where the whales jump over the big water sprayers. So I type in the word spray, and look what happens. It opens up B-roll and filters it down to just show me those two clips that have the word spray in the title. Very nice. Let's say I just want the voiceover. If I hit voice, boom, it opens up only the bin with the voiceover clip. So I can clear that and then type in something new. You'll also find that same feature down here in the media browser, and it's really useful when I'm in the effects menu. When I want to find, there's thousands of effects in here, right, in all these folders. So I just know I want to use maybe the auto color, right? I want to do a quick color adjustment. Let's just hit auto color, and it opens up the bin where the auto color lives, and it filters it down to just that effect. That's a quick view of the Adobe Premiere Pro interface. We'll do a lot more detailed work with the coming tutorials, and as you get deeper involved, you'll also get more adjusted and more comfortable with all the things that are involved in the workspaces and how you can even fix them, maybe customize them for your own needs.